GG everyone, welcome to a new series on the channel where we look back at the great and the good of video games past to remind us of all the great games that through neglect or apathy we all forgot about. For our first great game, we're taking the dive off a New York skyscraper straight into 2009's deadly virus-ridden apocalyptic adventure, Prototype.
My name is Alex Mercer. I'm the reason for all of this. They call me a killer, a monster, a terrorist. I'm all of these things.
Following the misadventures of doctor-turned-viral biological superweapon Alex Mercer, the game answered the question of what would it be like to play a superhero game, but you're one of the baddies. Which Mercer most definitely is. You literally eat people and steal their memories. I don't know how you could get more objectively bad than that, regardless of motive. Thankfully for Prototype though, it turns out that playing as a barely human, borderline psychopathic supervillain is actually about as much fun as you can have with a leather jacket on. Forget all the moralizing, save the day antics of your usual superhero game, and get ready to mash the citizens of New York into a fine paste while you work your way through a steady cast of monsters, infected denizens of the city, and the imposing hunters, and villains before ultimately saving New York from a nuclear strike. Okay, so Shakespeare it's not, but the story is surprisingly well thought out, and the web of intrigue mechanic, which requires you to seek out and consume soldiers and members of the public with further knowledge on why this whole world-ending infection started in the first place, is a pretty decent way to get players invested in finding out more than just the bare minimum. And it is unrelentingly fun to lord your new superpowers over a helpless and, let's be fair, deteriorating New York, and cause a bit of carnage for the military on your way through the story, which allows us to wall slide rather stylishly into another reason why Prototype is great: the incredible movement and abilities players can unlock. Running, gliding, jumping obscene distances, clearing massive buildings, dashing through the air to get that little extra bit of momentum before you hit the ground and continue running at full tilt. This is a game straight from the Insomniac Spider-Man school of how to make a character feel seamless to control. And it came out in 2009. Movement was incredibly intuitive and natural. Merely pressing the sprint button would cause Alex to hop over cars, run up buildings, and just generally be a badass with some next level parkour to keep you moving. And any breaks in your momentum always felt like player fault rather than the game hitting a snag. Sadly, this praise doesn't extend to the controls of vehicles, but why would you want to sit in a tank when you can throw yourself off a skyscraper and blow it up with some organically powered up hammer fists instead? Which leads us rather handily to the combat. Alex has the ability to transform his limbs into all manner of hilariously over-the-top organic weaponry, from a long arm whip that you can use to hijack helicopters, to a body armor suit presumably made of all the poor souls you've consumed so far, to literally just a sword attached to your arm. The claws were a personal favourite, partly because they had one of the best abilities in the game, one that let you raise spikes of hardened biological matter from the ground at everything around you, and had some truly gruesome finishers when you used them on any of the unfortunate citizens of New York. The abilities made combat fun, and that's a word that crops up every time I think about this game. Sometimes it's fun to turn your brain off for an hour and just blow stuff up. It's fun to grab an enemy and launch them off the biggest building you can find. It's fun to body surf on top of a zombie into your next combo. And the amount of extra moves and buffs you can unlock as you play through the game keeps combat feeling fresh, even if the mission design can get a little stale at times. Prototype even had ultimates, or devastators if you want to get technical, which we do. These incredibly powerful finisher moves could only be unlocked by buying them with experience points, and even then you could only use them when you were at critical mass. Much like finishers in Spider-Man, they're unbelievably potent and rely on situational awareness to get the most out of. And this game was no pushover in difficulty either, especially on hard mode. So learning how to master every ability was crucial to success. And so we arrive at the final piece of the Alex Mercer puzzle, and one of the main pulls of the game, the ability to shapeshift. Remember when I said you could consume people and absorb their memories? Well, it's even better than that, because not only does the act of painfully subsuming someone into your very flesh allow you to heal, you can even disguise yourself as the last person you consumed, which are both truly harrowing abilities when you think about it. But it's also metal as hell, so we'll allow it. Shapeshifting is the easiest way to get away from the military by blending in with the crowd, or even learn new skills once you start infiltrating Blackwatch bases and stealing people's abilities to drive tanks and helicopters. If only learning everything was so easy. The disguise system was genuinely unique at the time, and while it did make a bit of a mockery of stealth missions for the most part, the fact that you could literally be anyone in New York made for some interesting missions and story beats as the game goes on. You even get blindsided by the final boss of the game doing the exact same thing and posing as an ally before you realise too late they're actually the enemy. Obviously, Prototype wasn't perfect. Was the voice acting corny and a bit shoddy?
And Alex, for what it's worth, I'm sorry it had to play out like this.
And I'm gonna make sure he never does it to anyone else. Ever again.
Well, yeah, maybe. Is this probably the greyest representation of New York ever committed to a game? Possibly. Is the story a little bit all over the place? Well, yeah, sure, but what was the last game that you played that let you cause this amount of unparalleled carnage whenever you wanted? All in all, the good outweighs the mediocre, and frankly, it's about time more players remembered the ones who came before Spider-Man blew us all away on the PS4. While Prototype and its sequel are available in all their original glory on next-gen consoles, going back to them on current hardware does make us feel like maybe a remaster might do them some good. Prototype was incredibly popular at the time, and is honestly one of my standout PS3 games from the era, but after a lackluster response to the sequel, the series has gone dark ever since. But if Dead Space, which came out not 6 months before, can get a full remake with brand new cut content re-added, well, maybe Alex Mercer's work isn't done just yet. Which great games do you think everyone seems to have forgotten about? Drop your suggestions down in the comments, leave a like if you think Prototype deserves the next gen remake treatment, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on next week's great game as we head back to a forgotten gem of the PS2 era.